We are on Culture Kitchen. I am fired up, bro. I am so honored to be in the presence of greatness. Yeah, two amazing creatives over here. Yeah, we have the one, the only Olivia Mbani.
Hello, I'm back.
Welcome back, like you never left.
Yes.
How are you doing, Olivia?
Very well. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good, to be honest. You know, maybe nilikuwa stuck on energy leo.
We'll bring the energy.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, but I mean, let me tell you honestly, I like my Fridays.
That's
I
great.
look forward to Friday.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So the energy came.
Yeah, for Friday. Not like I'm going to do anything crazy out there.
It's just knowing it's Friday. It's just the mindset. I
just know tomorrow I'm not waking up for work.
Ooh,
I'm just going to be relaxing.
2 days of relaxing.
I'm at that age where doing nothing is such a thing. It's a gift.
It's a thrill.
You know, Lakini, it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
And then, of course, on my right-hand side, the one, the only, Khaliyesa. Khaliyesa. Oh, you're on your west side, the best side?
Yes.
Okay, good stuff. Barbara Minishi.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Khaliyesa is Kenyan, isn't it?
Khaliyesa is very Kenyan. In fact, I was showing Olivia a letter that over the weekend my father showed me because I'm named after my grandmother whose name was Khaliyesa.
Oh, nice.
I tend to say Khaliyesa means the rainmaker. And for me, rainmaker is everything creative.
Yeah.
So technically, we're all Khaliyesas in here.
So you don't mind the rain, the way it's been falling
I love
crazy?
Rain. I love
rain.
You
do?
There was a time, actually, it would rain and I would be like standing outside. And
what?
Because I was just like, I want to grow tall. I want to get connected to the earth.
Yeah.
This week, remember that time it rained heavily?
Yeah. Was it in 24?
No. It wasn't. Was it Monday, Tuesday?
Oh, you're talking recently?
Yes.
I know it rained so heavy, yeah.
The traffic was so bad. Then I remember I got to a place and I was just like, all right, I'm going to take a walk. And I just got out and I was walking in the rain. And I had an umbrella. But it was just one of those things where you're just like...
Yeah. You're not scared of getting sick when you're in the rain? Because I remember, me when I was growing up, my mom used to tell me, Kevin, ukishika malaria, it's on you. Don't you dare call me telling me until you have a fever. Your parents never used to tell you those things when you were younger?
You know, I was actually even born in April, so I remember all my birthdays, there used to be thunderstorms. So, like, naturally, it's just one of those things. I don't remember my parents ever telling me not to.
Yeah.
I'm very privileged to have been born into a family where my parents were the kind of... They didn't need to be super strict about things, but we knew the rules. So it was one of those ones where it was just like, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah. Sometimes they would just have to give you the look.
So, I would say, in terms of inheritances, mommy. My mom and my dad both, but my mom has the best one because people, I tell people, I say, we weren't beaten when we were growing up. I don't remember being beaten. My mom has this thing, she can just look and she just goes very silently.
Yeah.
Khaliyesa?
And you know.
And just know she's serious.
And you know. That's why sometimes when people just go in there, and I get it. Sometimes you need the hype. But for me, I always say, I can hear you very clearly. And especially when you're upset, I'm just like, oh, I get that.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's good to know, for real. Welcome back. Sorry. You've never been here.
He's welcoming back in advance.
Because I met you earlier.
I'm definitely going to be back.
I like that.
Next time when film comes out, I'll be back.
But I like your energy. You're so bubbly and so chill. Is this how you've always been?
Oh. It's very interesting. I remember one time in school, I said, I'm an introvert, and everybody went, no!
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think it's called being an ambivert. So I am a balance of being an extrovert in that I'm very curious about people. I've always had this thing about just listening to people.
Yeah.
And I'm very comfortable, like meeting you on the street, and if there's something going on, I'll just ask you a question.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that seems outgoing.
Yeah.
But I also have my very quiet, sacred moments because I need to take time to myself to listen. I always say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So that means the double the time you take back into yourself.
So is your time structured in a way, say for example now, every early morning you have to be in some place quiet, like, be meditative or whatever,
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it was not something that was actually conscious. It's just, I remember in high school, I used to walk along the corridors when everybody had gone to the other side because I was in boarding school. So I just walked up and down and just by myself. And it will be like quiet. Because some people get uncomfortable with silences, but I love silences. Yeah, for me, there's a lot of language you can hear in silences. And even in terms of creativity, I always say, listen, sit back and be silent. And it just works
true.
that way.
Yeah. Tell me about your background. Where did you grow up? Where were you raised? School?
Nairobi. That's why, a lot of Christmases, people will be like, so you're going to Shago? I'm just like, yeah, but I'm in Shago. But technically, yes, grew up in Nairobi. Went to school. I first started currency for my first 4 years, and then I went to Makini. Then for high school, I was in Pangani, and then I went to Daystar University.
Yeah, Daystar, good stuff. And so you've always wanted to be an artist or creative? Let me put it like that. Yeah. Is this something that you knew you were always going to be?
I have a story I remember. When I was 8 years old for Christmas, I really wanted a pair of red patent Mary Jane shoes. And I got them for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed wearing them. Because I wanted to be like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. So I wanted a tornado to come through Nairobi and take me away to Oz. But I think I noticed at that time that I used to love story. I love stories, would get immersed in stories. In fact, true story, I will tell on them at this point. When I was in Standard 8, my mom got called to school because the teachers were concerned.
What was their concern?
I was borrowing too many storybooks.
So you were an avid reader?
Yes. So I was an avid reader, and I had this thing of world building because it just comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
If you say something, I can put two and two together, and I start laughing. Somebody will say, you know how people throw lines?
Yeah.
I will say, yes. Tom Kian. Literally, I see it in my face, and then I start laughing. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, yeah. So I would say I have this thing about looking and listening at the world, and I see stories everywhere, and I just love it.
Yeah.
So inherently, I believe we're all artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. You call this show The Culture Kitchen.
Yeah. This segment specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're cooking.
We're cooking. Danger. I
in
like
our
that.
conversations,
It's
in our
true.
relating, because that's what happens. It's just synergy that's all there.
Yeah, but you see, most people actually think storytelling is such a skill. Like, there's a way to go about it.
Yeah.
The intro, the body, the outro.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's why they think, for storytelling in itself,
Yes.
it's a gift that only a few folks can actually thrive in. Sharing the stories. You just feel like you're. Like, it's so easy for certain people, like yourself. Yeah. So if you say that most humans are generally storytellers.
Yes.
Some folks are like, I'd rather consume stories.
Than create stories or tell stories or listen to stories. I don't know. This is not why, because I remember also growing up and back in the day, when TV used to come on at 4 p.m.,
Yeah.
And then radio, I remember Saturday listening to stories because we had that storytelling oral culture. And again, I say this thing about listening. You just sit in a space and you just listen and you see so much and you hear it. And I think that just naturally comes out, and you don't have to be always super expressive and be like, I have a story to tell. But there's just a way I always say, even that's the thing actually that I learned about photography, because before, people say, oh, it's the No. I just love the intimacy of people talking, because that's how it starts.
So what inspires you to do what you do then?
Intimacy with people.
Okay, yeah.
Because the camera was the first tool. Honestly, I didn't know I was going to be a photographer.
Yeah.
What happened, my dad has this story, and he's written it in his books and everything, and he's saying, when I was a baby, I used to love playing with his camera and his tripod. Yeah, and so, because later on we're just like, because none of us saw that coming. I also didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Then when I went to school, I remember I was in Pangani at one time. There was a visiting day, and my mother came with a camera, and I took a picture, because at that time it was film, 35 analog. And then I remember going home later on, and then the portrait was printed. And to date, it's still in the house as the favorite portrait of my mother. But I remember I was sitting in the boot of the car. It was a different angle, and I took the picture.
Yeah.
And then when I got accepted into Daystar, my father decided to give me the Minolta camera when I was going into school. And let me tell you something about cameras and power. I learned inherently, you hold the camera, people don't bother you.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So when you come in as a fresher and, everybody, yes, we need to get you and doing the activities.
Yeah.
And I have the camera, oh, you don't need to do anything. And I was just like, oh.
You get a free pass,
so I can do this. And then I realized it was also a doorway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could ask people, say, I'm interested in what you're doing, day in the life stories. So, Kev, I did, again, as I'm saying, I love listening to people and being curious about them.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember I used to also like seeing magazines, like life magazines, day in the life stories. And I was just
Yeah, they were dope.
So I remember doing a tailor, I remember doing one of those food sellers. In fact, the guy is still living in Hurlingham up to now, like 20 years later. Yeah. Social worker. It's just creating stories for myself because it just gave me something. But I think for the first time ever, and this is now why we're talking about storytelling, you're saying voice. For me, it wasn't voice that actually gave me storytelling. It was a camera that opened me up and made me realize, oh my gosh, I actually have a voice. But the voice was not speaking, it was listening to people. Yeah.
I've seen the work that you do and also read your profile, your bio, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Very, very spiritual, very emotional, very deep. You know what I mean? It's not surface level art.
Yeah.
The stories are very deep. Yeah. So at what point did it not just be about you taking pictures, but going deeper with it? Because it's definitely very different. I love how you're seeing
very deep, and there's this thing sometimes we have things that are all around us and we never know about it. I'm just going to go back to photography. When I graduated from Daystar, because I did a degree in communication, I was not planning on being a photographer. I was going to probably work in print media or advertising or NGO. I was probably going to do a master's and PhD in communication because I was excellent at my schoolwork. Yeah. But suddenly I had a dream. Actually, I just woke up and it was just like 1 week after graduation.
Yeah.
And I felt it in my body. And it was just like, this is a thing. And then when I looked around my room, I realized my entire walls were covered with images.
Yeah.
What had I been doing that was so easy and that I loved? Photography. So sometimes, even when you talk about spirituality, there's some things that are always around us that we don't know about, but then suddenly we get this and then it lands in. But it took a while for me to put it into two that this was a thing. For me, it was just life. This was how I was showing up. And I feel sometimes as people, we have these masks where we show up and then we separate our identities. It is difficult for me to do that.
Was it after that dream that you decided to come up with the 13th plan? Is it the 13th path?
I was 23 then.
Okay.
So then I just woke up. I said, okay, I want to do photography. But this is the kind of photography I want to do. Because even when I told people later on I want to be a photographer, they were like, so you want to work in a Kodak studio? Or you want to work in the newspaper? I'm just like, no, not that kind of photography. And then when I mentioned that kind, at that time, Kenya, there were specific people, different color. It was one of those things where it's just like, you, as a Kenyan black woman, you think that's possible. But I actually followed it up, and it worked. And slowly by slowly, when I think about my journey, and even in how my first shoot happened, I wrote a letter to Salim Amin at Camera Pics. And I was just like, those were the days of snail mail and phone calls, you call. And I said, I'm interested in doing a different kind of photography. And it was that time, it was advertising, commercial, and fashion. Then I said, I know, because they had Camera Pics and they had the Muhammad Amin library. And I was just like, I'd like to do that. And then he responded because of better writing skills. And he was just like, I came in for an interview. He said, we don't really do that. But at the studio, there's Duncan Willett who does it. You can have a talk with him. And he gave me his number. Then I remember that time, the offices, Salim's offices were in ABC Place. So I went back to my parents' place, then I called him on the phone and I introduced myself and I said, my name is Barbara Minishi. I'm interested in being an intern. And Duncan's like, oh, interns don't know what to do with them. I said, I can come in half an hour.
Right.
And he was surprised because someone calls you and tells you I can come in half an hour. And then I went. What I went with was during school, when I was in school, I was fascinated by contemporary dance. Yeah, and that's the time the Go Down Art Center had started. And my neighbor, she worked, Joanne Yambo, she worked at AYNR at that time. So I just said, can you please just drop me on Mombasa Road, near South Beach?
Yeah.
And then I'd walk into the Go Down, and I started doing documentary pictures on contemporary dance. Again, as I said, creating stories for yourself.
Correct.
Because you love doing that. And those are the pictures that I showed Duncan, and he had things. And just like we are having this conversation, I have this natural thing where, because of listening and synergy, I can move through different spaces. And it was just like, okay, come in. And later on, then after I left, sent a thank you letter.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not around, but come in for the first shoot. And that's how I showed up for the first shoot.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was still, it was not a full-time thing. It was one of those ones where I've graduated, I'm seeing the other people in my class, they're getting the jobs, everybody's looking at you, hey, you're doing kibarua.
Really?
They're not understanding what you're doing, because they're
Yeah.
just like, you're wasting this excellent degree that you have
Right,
and everything.
right.
And sometimes you get those doubts.
Yeah.
But there was something about me, and I'm still going to attribute it to lineage. You know this thing where you have this stubbornness?
Yeah.
It's like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So
Exactly.
you get it on another level
Yeah.
where you're like, and I'm also thankful to my parents, because my parents had this thing where, growing up, actually, it was one of the things I used to do. I never asked for permission. I just told them I'm doing this. So again, as I'm saying, it's not that it was a rebellion on another level, but it was a rebellion in that I'm curious about this and I'm going to follow it. I'm going to tell you and I'm going to do it, but they wouldn't stop me. They'd be just like, okay.
Right.
They don't, so I appreciate that. And I actually give like double thanks for that. So slowly I started. Then I remember one time I did a shoot and I helped a lady. Her name was, no, I've jumped too far. One of the stories I did was, at that time, Kenya Fashion Week used to happen, on Macreath and Kenya Fashion Week. And I remember I came in and I said, I want to do behind the scenes.
Right.
So I did documentary story on behind the scenes. And I met one of the designers. Then later on, I met her on a shoot and she was like, hey, can you come in KOIM? There's a new magazine called True Love that's coming into Kenya. And I'm assisting, I'll be the stylist for the magazine, and I'm assisting, you can come and help me. And I came on the shoot, and what happened was I ended up assisting her and the photographer. 2 days later, the photographer, whose name was David Beatty, called me to be his assistant on shoes. And that's how now part-time, I also started learning fashion. Then after a while, because at that time, Saturday, SatMag, Nation Magazine, used to utilize both David and Duncan. Again, as I'm saying, at that time, it was a very, very niche industry. But I was doing my own stuff, meeting people, like it was in town. If I see you and I'm just like, oh, you look good, I'd be like, can I shoot you? And I'd shoot, and at that time, there was a darkroom at Studio Mona Harlingam, I'd print. I'm still developing my stuff and part-time working with these people. Then I remember one time both David and Duncan were not there, and SatMag fashion had to be done. And Carol was just like, Barbara, can you do it? And I did it, and that was my first ever published fashion shoot.
Yeah, so I can tell things were aligning for you.
Yeah.
Very
then
early.
After that time, Adam, Drum, True Love, all of East African magazines came in. And honestly, that period of it's, you know how I wouldn't want to call it a training ground, but it was perfect because I had the freedom to be, because I was doing cover, I was doing fashion, I was doing portraiture, I was doing travel, I was doing products, but everything was just energizing, and it was just.
And what was the feedback from people who were consuming your work?
So, it was interesting. It was good. Sometimes people would think somebody else had done the image because they were like, it was too good. 2 or 3 times I was told, your pictures don't look Kenyan.
What does that even mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then after a while, I started saying thank you.
Yeah.
And I realized, and this is now why when you talk about spirituality, or we talk about, oh, you're natural like this, if you have something in you and you're willing to let it come out, and there's a way you see the world and you do things, and to people, it's just like, oh, we've never seen this before.
Yeah.
But for me, it was not about being defensive. It was just about, again, as I say, I have this thing where I can listen. I don't need to take it on, but I can continue doing what I'm doing. But at the same time, I saw that it was also inspiring to some people. So I just said, I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
But I must say, I remember one time I had an image and somebody grabbed the laptop because they were convinced it was Photoshop.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Yeah.
and I laughed because I've never learned Photoshop. I love. They're great. They're great Photoshop artists, and I get it. And I say also in terms of post-production and photography, they do go hand in hand. But I remember that time. So this is sometimes I can get stubborn to another level. I was just like, I don't need to learn Photoshop. The way I shoot my pictures is not reliant on that. Again, as I say, I started in film, and I get it. Being in a dark room is actually technically post-production.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just like, I don't need to argue about who I am and what I know, because the beauty about photography, it's both dangerous, is that every shoot you're beginning to be. You know how you come in and you're just like, you're thinking, oh, I know. No.
Yeah.
Photography and filmmaking humbles you.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so I want to go back to the story for the 13th path. I find it so fascinating because you say that in 2016, you went through a radical personal and professional change that evolved into a post-documentary fine art and multimedia project.
Yeah.
So how was this transition?
The transition,
you know what I mean? And because you said you had a dream.
I had a dream.
So what was the epiphany? And
the epiphany was that, remember how I'm talking about I'm doing all this work. I'm getting all these accolades. Yeah. I remember even in 2013, I had gone into art direction, Nairobi Half-Life, African Magic Movie Awards. You win an award, like Best Art Director. And you're getting all this thing, but your life feels hollow. And again, as I'm saying, I listen. I remember I had been traveling, I came back, I had a shoot. And I remember after the shoot, I'm in the cab and I'm crying.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I just said, things have to change. And I remember having this dream.
So I want to jump in there. Sorry to to cut you short. So you were crying because you felt
I couldn't do it. There's a way you can move along.
Yeah.
There's signs that you know.
Yeah.
I cannot do this. I cannot do this. I'm being called somewhere, somehow, and I need to listen. And your life depends on it. So again, as I say, when you've developed a sensitivity to listening, you must tell the truth to yourself. And sometimes that's the hardest for people, because sometimes you think, oh, I have bills to pay, I have to do this. Literally, it was whoever he was, he took it. So I said yes, and I opened up, because also when you say yes to it, you see things in your life just start shifting automatically. So I got this dream, and it was such a vivid dream. And I named the photo series He Looked Like Solomon Lane because Mission Impossible had just come out, and I had watched the movie, I remember, on the plane that time when I'd been traveling back to Kenya. And Solomon Lane was the antagonist in the movie. So in the movie, I dreamt it was my childhood home. And I walk in, and all the brilliant, incredible women I know were being hung on hooks. Yeah, and it's like their essence. They were all shriveled up and they were taken. And then Solomon just turns and looks at me, and I was just like, then I ran out of the house. Then I got to the door, and I just thought, absolutely not. And then I walked back because I was just like, I'm going to fight you. And I woke up. But it was one of those things because there were other elements that were so powerful and strong. And I remember waking up and calling my mom and, oh, thank you for mothers like that. I called my mom, I said, we have to go to the house.
Yeah.
Then we went back to the house, I took pictures. Then after that, again, as I'm saying, once you start a ball rolling, things will happen. And then I knew the house I had built, I had a wonderful home and everything. I just said, I'm going to get rid of everything and start again. And that's how, and I thought, oh, you're going to start back again. And that's how the 13th path started. 13 actually is a name that people tend to think it's unlucky.
Yeah.
Yes. In a sort, we don't even have a route number 13. I don't think we have.
Right.
Some buildings don't have the route number 13. In spirituality, in tarot, 13 is the death card. But when you're talking about death, we're talking about metamorphosis and transformation, being willing to go into the unknown. And that for me was that point, because when you've built something that feels hollow and life is inviting you, hey, you've said yes, do you want to change? So I started doing that. So I let go of my house and everything.
Yeah.
Again, people ask, how did you? People were thinking I have a nervous breakdown or I'm running away. I was just like, no, that's not me. I just said, life is calling me to do something and I'm listening, and I'm willing to strip myself from inside out and take responsibility for what comes through. Because I realized the way I had built my career was excellent. But also in the building of it, I also had armor. And sometimes when you have armor, that armor is blocking in a greater story that desires to come through.
Wow.
And when a greater story or path, because I got very clear. When people say, oh, you're very creative, and I'm just like, look, life is working through me.
Yeah.
I'm a vessel, I'm a channel, and I'm a container. I get it that I do have my free will. So I choose to co-create, you know.
It's interesting you put it like that, because I know there's some artists out there who they get to like a dead end creatively. This guy just feels like, oh my God, burnout.
Yeah.
I can't think straight.
Yeah.
I need to get into another space or career altogether. There's a sense of anxiety. Let me put it like that.
Yes.
So you, before you had the dream,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, just like you said, you're going to an energy like that.
Yes.
And so now, what are some of the things that you had to unlearn?
Strong black woman syndrome.
And how does that look like?
Strong black woman is everybody, you know, relying on doing everything by yourself. Because technically, if I think about it, a lot of the stuff I had built was by myself. Oh, no, you're not going to... Oh, I'll do it by myself. And the thing also about photography is sometimes at that stage, you can be a great solo practice.
Yeah.
But then when you move into film, you're working with more people. Yeah? Then again, as I'm saying, the armor. As a photographer, people open up so much. Yeah? Because you're providing the safe space. Now, when life points back and it also tells you open up and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're there just being like, no, I gotta be the strong one.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. And again, as I'm saying, I'm looking around, and because also when I'm talking about lineage, it's not just about family.
Yeah.
All of us, everything has a lineage.
Yeah.
Social, cultural, political.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're told, oh, as a woman, you can't do this. Or as this, you can't do this. And sometimes now when you've grown up in a scenario that has been, it's all been about being in the defense, when
Yeah.
you're supposed to open up, it's just like, you got to let some things go.
Yeah.
You have to let your idea of what success looks like. You have to let go of the idea of what showing up in your power looks like.
Yeah.
I had done a very actually powerful documentary story, and had been followed by Al Jazeera, and it had been featured. I had been doing a project, it was called the Red Dress Project in 2012, 2013. And I remember even when I first came out with the dress, and that was the day it really came out, and the project was red.
You're like,
And
what?
at that time, that was the first time actually Honorable
Yeah.
Martha Karua was running for president.
interesting.
And she had agreed to be in the project.
Oh.
And then it comes out, and I was just like, okay, how's this going to work out?
Yeah.
But
First of all, that outfit was very creative.
no,
Very
you've
dope.
not seen the older one.
Oh, there's an older one. Okay.
So this is now I'm telling you the
Yeah.
13th path and how life
Yeah,
brings you
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah. And we did that, and it was such a powerful experience. And I remember the next day it was shown on Al Jazeera, then apparently even in Kenya Airways in the flight. I used to get random calls and emails from people.
Yeah.
But what had happened was 3 months after it had been done, I had to stop it. And for me then, it was the biggest failure of my life. It was still at that same time, you know, how I said I have to stop doing these things because it's not working. Because one, again, you can't do things alone. A project like that, if you want it to be traveling, you have to have people on board.
Of course.
Kevin, I had never learned how to ask for help,
Yeah.
ever. And life was just like, where we're taking you, you need to learn some things.
Exactly.
And everything just, I was just like, and I said, I have to let it go and I have to surrender.
Yeah.
Me, who's usually the fighter, it was just like, and I stopped that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was also one of the key signs where it was just like, this is not working, you know, we have to do this. Then also my health sometimes, like literally my body will start breaking down when things don't work. And at that time, I used to smile. Like automatically my lip would go, I tell people, I'm just like, if I'm incongruent with a truth, an
Yeah.
inner truth, and then I'm trying to tell a lie to myself, it just is,
I want you to talk to us about the short film, Inheritance.
yes.
Beautiful. You added so much value to our society. What inspired you to actually make that film? Because I know it's about giving a voice to,
It's about,
yeah.
again, this
the
came in
voiceless.
a container.
Yeah.
It came in a container because it was part of the Some Fine Day program. So they were doing, it was called Making something. But it was a program where, similar to what had happened with Nairobi Half-Life, where you're trained, and then after the training, you come together, create a team, and make your own film. So I remember I knew I wanted to be a director. Or I already knew I was a director. I already knew I was a director. You don't have to get legit, even with photography. I never went through any formal education. Let's also get that straight, because sometimes some people think you have to have formal schooling. And I knew something wanted to come through me, so I saw the call out and they were doing the program, and I applied as a director and I got in. So in the program, I thought I didn't read the application properly. I didn't know that at the end of it, there would be 3 projects chosen and that they would each get grant money to get their film made. And the thing was, we were directors in a room, we were separated. There were writers, there were producers, and the writers would have a chance where they would pitch the story. And if you like it, you'd be like, this is the story that I want, and I want to do it. Kevin, when Ngwatilo was talking about inheritance, and she's talking about the rural, and for me, the rural is where all those stories are. And she's talking about this young girl who's estranged from her home. And part of me was seeing also myself in that story. There's this thing when your body knows, it knows.
Yeah.
And I remember the pictures were still going on, but it came down, and because we were at home because it was virtual.
Yeah.
I just sent Guatila a message. I said, that's my story. Yeah. And I had connected to another lady, Ivy, previously before, and I'd seen her. You know how you see someone, you're just like, we're going to work together and you're my producer. Then I also sent Ivy. I said, this is a film that I want to do.
You said you felt inspired the moment you heard that girl talking about it.
It's not even about inspiration.
Yeah.
It's just like something just...
It relates.
It was just like, you know, just like, this is me.
That's the one.
You're like, you're just like, you know how you even want to go through the screen? You're just like,
yeah.
You're like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think most girls, especially in rural Kenya, are so voiceless? Yeah, like you say, they're estranged. And would that ever change? Yeah?
Okay, I'm going to switch it, because technically our protagonist, Kava, she's actually a city girl, but she was a straight, you know, if you're coming for the opening, you're going to watch the movie. But I know some people have watched it because...
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the point. Historically, it's not even just about the rural areas. Historically, all women.
Yeah.
There's this thing, you know how sometimes when they say good girls keep quiet, it starts first with children, then with girls. So this is now why even that silence, it's ingrained in us, like socio-culturally. But a lot of, again, as we're going to say, strong, deep cultures, Africa, Asia, it's a thing where girls, they're just like, shh, you know? You grew up with that. So when you have a semblance of having a voice, it's just like, no.
Yeah.
So in the movie, the protagonist, what had happened was her mother had been estranged from the family because she gave birth to her out of wedlock. So, but then she gets to go back, and it's just like, why do I have to come back to a family that has already rejected me? Yeah. And when I think also about my career trajectory, the fact that I gave myself permission to create my own path, create my own voice, listening to that own voice and articulating in the way that for me felt true. Because again, as I said, I was honoring what I was listening to and what I was seeing. I got very clear. Growing up, some people will never listen to you.
Right.
And I learned very quickly, I don't need to fight that. I know what I'm here to do, and it's not about proving them wrong, but I can show up for that. So that's why stories, or when I'm listening to people, this is now why I truly, truly value listening to people. Do you know how many people are not listened to, Karen?
Yeah, it must be sad.
And I always say how just listening to a person can change a life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but I also get the feeling that your parents made it easy for you to find your voice. Like you told me, they never really questioned your decisions.
Yeah.
They kind of trusted you from when you were very, very young.
So
I guess also how we were raised, how some of our, our sisters, our moms were raised, kind of made it hard for them, even if they were creative, even if they were, they had core confidence, but just somehow because of the environment they were in. Yeah. And that sticks in you, you know what I mean? Now you grow up thinking, I'm not supposed to say stuff, even if now you're not even around your parents. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much. I am grateful so much for my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not to say we didn't have arguments. I always love it because even when I think about my father, we were like two We're
Yeah.
both the fair people.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we had an argument.
Yeah.
And then my father said, daughters are not supposed to argue with their fathers. And I looked at him and I said, Daddy, if I can't argue with you, if I
Yeah.
go out into the world, what will happen?
Exactly.
And he was just like, yeah. So, but I also got it very clearly. It's not that this thing about silence, and I get it, because sometimes silence is powerful. Sometimes there's some
Correct.
things I'm just like, this deserves silence, and silence is sacred here,
Yeah.
and I'll hold that. But the silencing of the desires that we have within us, the visions that we have that want to come through, this is why I list, again, as we're saying, how we grew up, the spaces that we inhabit in. Some people in some countries, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
As an artist, it is dangerous. And this is now why I love doing my workshops. And I'm just going to say, like, legit, I enjoy doing my workshops, like, especially in Uganda.
Yeah.
But when I think about Uganda and Kenya, two very different places.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you say that? You know, I actually went to school in Uganda.
Yeah.
Bit of high school over
Yeah.
there.
I love
Yeah.
my career. I was there for one of my workshops. I said legacies. I said, let's go to the Makerere archives.
Exactly. So, what are some of the notable differences that you learned from, you know, the I don't want to say culture, but
Yeah.
as a people in Uganda in this modern day and age, how different are they from Kenyans?
First of all, I'm just going to say, as East Africans, we have our merits, and we are all wonderful people. Yeah, we are. However, some people say Kenyans are like the New Yorkers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
abrasive.
Because, and I remember one time somebody was just like, we can get articulate, and we can get loud and rowdy,
Yeah,
and we can state our opinions,
Yeah.
and especially to people in authority.
right.
Some countries, even just in not even in a formal setting, even in an informal setting, if you make
Yeah.
a statement, it's a life and death situation.
Right.
And they've inherited that and they've grown up with that. So that's why I'm saying Kenya at least has some liberties regarding that. It's not to say we're better than that than here.
Yeah.
But I saw how it affects being an artist.
Yeah.
Being that you have something within you, but it's you think you have to ask the world permission to do it, not understanding that yourself, you have to give yourself permission first to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just also going to say, with the 13th path, after you go through 10 years of like, because it was a complete death process. You know how you're just like, you try, you start again. I would try and be like, look, I had created a successful career. I can do it.
Yeah.
But you know how the world is just like, yeah. But then it got to a point where it was just like, and so when I'm saying, also talking about pitching this movie, it was a time when I had to actually move back to my parents' place.
Yeah.
Like life had gotten back to that way. And when I moved back and I open a wardrobe and I see this dress that I had done in 2012, the project, because it had haunted me. And even I couldn't touch it. And I didn't know that it had actually been brought and stored in my parents' house.
Right.
And me here who had to move back, and I'm just like, and I remember it's even on my Instagram because I just said, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten about it, because I had also written a script about it, because part of me was just like, no, I need to lay this to rest. This thing has been haunting me for too long. And it came, and at that time I was doing the film thing, was meant to pitch. And I looked at it and I was just like, Then I was part of a VR filmmaking masterclass. And they said, if you have a story, write something. And I said, I'm going to pitch a story about this dress going back to somebody who wore it 10 years ago.
Wow.
And then just like let it rest. My pitch won.
Wow, look at that.
Then we did the movie. Then after we did the movie, I thought, and I called it Utawala.
Yeah.
Then I was just like, something might happen. Then guess what happens? Like, you see how things start coming back. A week later, I see, Fujifilm are coming out with the GFX challenge. It's the first challenge.
Yeah.
On my vision board, I had that camera because it's like a camera that costs over a car. It's a medium format, like digital camera. They were like, if you have a project idea, let us know. And you can even use these cameras and do your project. And I said, I can try again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you go through so much in life, trying, even your imagination dies.
Correct.
And I just said, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And you
I
killed
applied.
it. You killed it.
No, that time I didn't know, but remember, I'm talking about the movie going on,
Yeah.
Inheritance was going on.
Yeah.
Do you know all those projects came through at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom, boom. And I was just like,
Sawa.
okay.
Hold it right there. That is Khaliyesa.
Khaliyesa.
Okay, sawa.
Without the K.
Khaliyesa. Yeah, I like that. Minishi, she's a photographer and filmmaker. We're talking about her amazing project. Sorry, and she's got an event on the 21st.
I haven't. I like how you call it an event. It's an experience.
It's an exhibition. It's an experience. I like that. So you'll talk about that when we come back in just a bit. They're hanging out with the one, the only Olivia Ambani in the building.
Hello.
She's just cooling in the corner.
Yes,
you know,
I'm just listening. Today it's my job to listen.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we also have Khaliyesa B. Minishi. She's a photographer and filmmaker, and we're talking about her amazing journey and an amazing also a exhibition that she's got going on the 21st of May. We'll talk about that in just a bit. The venue, Yeah, and I remember, if you want, you can call me on 0719012600. The hashtag is After Hours on Spice. You've won some serious awards out here. Globally, Kwanzaa. You know, from New York all the way to Zambia. What have you learned about yourself with all these awards, yeah? And did you ever see yourself getting to these levels?
I'm going to say yes and no. And I'm going to say actually the turning point possibly happened with African Movie Awards in Nigeria with Nairobi Half-Life. So we all went as a team for the awards. And I remember we were doing, I was nominated as Best Art Director for Nairobi Half-Life. And I remember we were doing the rehearsals the day before. And I remember being asked, Barbara, have you written your acceptance speech? It was not in my mind.
Yeah.
I was just coming to Lagos and I was going to, then I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Then she just said, because the producer, she said, it's good to have something, at least, in case that happens.
Yeah.
But it had not entered my mind.
You just say, thank you, Mom. Thank you, my team. Guys, for the sleepless nights.
Thank you.
Thank you to my country, Kenya.
Yeah, in full transparency.
Yeah.
So even before the awards started, you know, because they take people in and I had seen what the rehearsals were.
Yeah.
I was in the green room eating plantain because everybody else was sitting. Then I heard, then I was like, oh, the song is going to end. Let me get my, move towards my seat. So I entered the main room as, the seat, and we're going to start live. As soon as I see it, they say, and we are going to start with production design.
You're like, oh my God.
And the list, and they start reading the nominees, and then they say, and the winner is Nairobi Half-Life. Barbara Minishi. I was just like, I stood up. I went to the stage. And I said, thank you. I thanked the entire team because, again, this thing's, it's a team.
Yeah.
It takes a team to make everything true. And one of the things that I said was just like, this is a reminder to all of us to live a full life. And I remember leaving that room. And sometimes you say something and it's also to yourself.
Yeah.
And I got that award and it was just like, okay, cool. But it was very, very clear. You get an award, life goes on. You don't get an award, life goes on. And I'm the kind of person who had learned to discern, because for me, it's not all about flashy things. It's something, again, I would say perhaps the house I grew in, the family I grew in, it's one thing that I learned to discern. It's not the things that you have that make you who you are. And it's just a thing. And I think maybe it came through also growing up 844. Remember when people do KCP, KCSE, and people are like, my grades! And I'm just like, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Who are you as a person, as a character? Because for me, it's always been character-based.
Yeah.
Was it lovely to have won that? Absolutely. Yeah. But then moving on along, it's one of those things where I realized, again, I appreciate accolades. It is wonderful being recognized for the work that you have done. But also one of the things I needed to unlearn was I had gotten very comfortable with not being recognized and doing my own thing. So this is now why for me it wasn't such a big, but I remember at one time I had to pivot and be like, Barbara, accept that.
It's interesting you put it like that because, first of all, I'm not so surprised because I was reading about a very amazing author in the 18th century in England. And this guy was so big. But the moment people found out how he looked like was the beginning of the end. He got serious depression. He couldn't stand being in crowds. He didn't even want guys to thank him for the amazing book that he had. I forget his name. Yeah, so you first of all, you said you're an introvert. Really,
okay, that's let me just, that's one of the, that is a half-truth. the fact that part of me was just like your whole thing is about connecting to people and
Right.
everything. What I do know is I honor my rhythms. And so my rhythms require silence and taking time apart.
Yeah.
But then also when I need to show up, I do show up. But it's not about being loud.
Yeah.
But it's about presence and awareness.
Yeah. So now that's going to lead me to my next question. Are you open to reviews, by the way? Do you read comments on your social media when you post your work? You're like, you know what? I really don't need this kind of feedback. I don't feel anything. Negative, positive, I'm still going to create.
Negative, positive, I'm still going to create. That's how it's always been. And also because I went through a period of being invisible. I'm just going to say my darkroom period. And I got that, again, as you say, feedback sometimes is good. But then I find the comment section can kill people, can kill their dreams. And this is now why I feel like in the social media setting, if you depend too much on reviews and comments, it's going to go this way.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, people have their biases.
Yeah.
Look, what kind of movies do you like?
Really old school movies.
Like
let me see, what am I watching right now? I don't have a specific genre.
Okay.
Or
just say one movie.
One movie that I really like, Scarface.
Okay.
Tony
Olivia,
Montana.
tell me a movie that you really like.
Ooh, wow. That's a hard one. I'm going to go with my very, very classic Sound of Music.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Scarface, Sound of Music. Then somebody decides to pitch them against each other. And you're like, two very different movies,
I know, right?
two very different audiences, but they each have their merits.
Mm.
And I got to understand, and I was just like, hang on. By the way, when we're talking about reviews, where is it coming from and for who, for what? If you're in a learning situation and you have a mentor and they're coming to you from an objective viewpoint, and I have asked for the review, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
If you work in a setting that demands review and performance, absolutely yes. For my artwork and for the work that I get to do, there's specific work. So this is now why, because of the way that I work, I'm just like, it's going to land how it needs to land. In fact, if you come and see a picture and that's how you translated it, Kevin, I have no business telling you.
It's not on you.
Yeah, you come in, you see Scarface, it's fine. Olivia will come in and be like, Sound of Music, and I'm just like, you're both absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I do, that was a little pet peeve for a while, because sometimes I look at comments and I'm just like, suddenly everybody's a professional critic on somebody.
The Kenyans,
Kenyans, I said, but this is now why I say and I praise, because I always say, it's like, we are one of the most articulate, concise, the comedy. You can literally write a movie from a comment section.
Yeah, it's true.
And so sometimes I'm just
somebody wrote a song of a comment section. Yeah.
And I'm just like, so again, as I say, I got to this point where I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just say, okay, will the comment section nourish me? No.
Yeah.
Have you seen people's attitudes change because of? Yes. So I said yes. So I remember telling myself, I'm going to neutralize myself about it. There are some comments that will come, and this has come from the heart,
It's
and
true,
you
it's true.
know it.
Yeah, it's true.
And but there's some you're just like, you're just making the comment or making the comment, and you want to get to 10.
So I was told, if you're going to give an artist and you're respectful towards them, legit feedback.
Yes.
There's something called the sandwich. That's, it. So you start with positive, negative, and I think that works most of the time. So I was going to talk about Enchantment, this new chapter of yours.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a transmedia anthology series centered on identity, shadow narratives, and a word I can't even pronounce.
Psychogeography.
That one. My first time to encounter that word.
But you said it in the beginning when we had this conversation. You actually defined it.
Oh,
remember how you said we are affected by the spaces we inhabit?
Yeah, it's true. Oh, so that's what it's about, yeah?
Yes.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, so
you know. You see what we're talking about.
Shadow narratives.
Yes.
These are the shadow narratives, yeah? What are some of those narratives that you had to confront in your life, for example?
The one I would say the biggest one was this identity of what a woman is. You know how somebody comes and says, be a true African woman. Or they'd be like, be a Kenyan woman. And you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time when I was much younger and I was in a social setting and some gentleman was just like, so what's your name? And I said my name. Then he's like, but what's your last name? Then I was just like, why? He's like, I want to know which area you come from so that I know what kind of a woman you are. And in my head,
What?
it's like,
Wow.
Hey.
then I'm just like, oh, that's not going to help.
Yeah.
Then I realized because we have this thing, and I'm just going to say tribalism is a thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Globally, but also within Kenya in our specific ways, if you want to put it culturally. And if you look at the stereotypes people have, they're also the shadow narratives that people have. Yeah? If you think about the archetypes we have, the artist has an archetype. What is it? The starving artist.
Yeah. Wow, that one we've
That's
had
a shadow
lot.
narrative,
Yeah.
actually. If you think about the ruler, then there's a dictator. So that's the opposite field. So that's the shadow narrative. So whatever archetype there is, there's a shadow narrative to that. So this is now when people run it, they say, oh, then I say, but you have the sun and the moon, right? You have light and shadow. Understand that's a natural part of life, and we all have the shadow. And for me, I just said, I need to allow the shadow to be my ally. There's one thing I remember used to saying about, integrity and all that stuff. And I was just like, Barbara, there's no person who doesn't have any flaws in the world, including you. So when sometimes people go with holier, I'm holy, I do not. And then I'm just like, your shadow will demand to speak.
Yes.
And
At the right time.
Yes. And if you repress and you don't meet it, because there are these uncomfortable truths we all have within us, and there's some things you will not say out aloud.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because I remember there was even a time when I was just like, you know how you're just like, violence doesn't solve anything? Then sometimes you're just like, but I want to be violent.
You know.
And if you don't meet that, and talk to it or allow it to move through,
It's true.
it festers and it takes on now another dimension. So for me, I always say the shadow has its merits. It's not that everything that's in the shadow is wrong. When you're talking about photography and film, or even when you think about film needs to be processed in the shadow.
Yeah.
We grew up in the womb. The womb is a place of the shadow. When you think about ideas marinating, they have to be marinating in the dark. The dark is such a wide space for all of us. And to be the person that we are, the character development we need to go through, it means you must meet and move through your shadow. Take responsibility for it, not other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, it's
I love
true.
the shadow.
But unfortunately, some people never get out of that space. Yeah, the dark. Yeah. Kwanzaa artists. I've seen a lot of stories. Even some of my friends that I've known who are artists.
Yeah.
Man, they went through a dark hole.
Yeah.
Back I'm just like, you need some help, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this thing, I think maybe there's an extra level of sensory perception that artists have.
Yeah.
And you really, really feel deeply. But sometimes, so this is now why with the 13th Path, because for me, I came through that period, and again, as I told you, I got all those 3 projects.
Yeah.
The Fujifilm GFX Challenge, Inheritance, the film, and Utawala all came at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was showing me the things I had learnt about the shadow, because all of them also involved aspects of meeting the shadow and moving through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last project I remember doing especially with because the camera had to go back.
Yeah.
Was called Invoking the Soft, because I remember saying, what now? You've come through so much death. And even if we think about life right now, there's so much grief going on in the world. I personally lost my father on World Photography Day, August 19th last year.
Yeah.
And I remember there are things your body does, and there are spaces and places you go and you cannot articulate that. And sometimes, you're just like, and by the way, it sucks. Some people are going through things and it's tough and it's hard. And sometimes you're just like, I'm tired. I'm tired. I cannot do that. We all go through that. I remember just looking at it, and again, it's not, because sometimes some people say, just pray about it or be strong, and sometimes I'm just like, shut up, So this is now why when we talk about listening, there's sometimes we can see that something that can save a life. This is why I talked about listening can save a life.
Yeah.
And the shadow. And it's not about, because also there's the aspect, some people take the shadow on another level and they play with it. And sometimes you're just like, But I remember Invoking the Soft, which is which is going to be showcased in the exhibition, because for me it was the 13th path to enchantment.
Yeah.
I got to invoke in the software, and I was just like, you've come through this. Because sometimes when you've come through something that has nearly killed you, it has killed others. Yeah. But you're willing to be like, okay, I can begin again.
Exactly.
And I was just like, I've come from the 13th path, so what will my next 10 years look
Yeah.
like? And I said, one of the things was that I keep on saying, I'm alive.
Yeah.
We are breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the breath that I have, with what I get to do and what I get to be, how can I look at life? Understanding, again, as I'm saying, I'm not bypassing the death, the horror, the grief, the violence, the change that's going on in the world right now. But I can choose to be enchanted by everything. And enchantment is just fully showing up in life.
Yeah, that chapter on the enchantment. So you go deep, obviously.
Yes.
Shadow narratives,
Yes.
identity.
Yes.
How do you think artists, new generation artists, can actually find meaning in their work? Just like you said, because of the fact that we're living in a very chaotic world nowadays, yeah? The AI manenos right now, everyone has an opinion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of negative energy going down, that I can imagine can affect an artist's sanity. So how can they actually find meaning in their work?
So on May 23rd, which is next Saturday, after the exhibition, I'm going to do an exhibition talk and walk through. So it's called Synthesis. So it's like a mini masterclass. If you're an artist, you can come in for it. We'll put up the registration link, but I'll be specifically talking about that, because at least I have live pictures and films to show you how to start navigating that. At the end of the day, it'll be you versus yourself. I always say it's you versus yourself. But sometimes when they see proof that there will be periods in life, because even when you think about, we're not like Europe who has winter, summer, spring, but we do have our winters. If you plant a seed, you know there's a time you'll harvest, then there's a time the land will be fallow.
Yeah.
There's a time the land will be dry. There's a time the soil will need to be done again. Those are the seasons where I would say, welcome them. In fact, those are the seasons where I'm just like, break the rules.
Break the rules.
Break the rules. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I got was when I had started my MFA. And it was also that time I realized I had to stop, because I couldn't, you know how you're just like, I thought I could do it by myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, Barbara, you're self-employed. You can't do you know how you're like. Then I remember one of my professors, because I remember we were talking about work and the blockage was still going on. This was a few months before I made that choice. And then my professors asked me, they said, Barbara, have you ever failed? Then I said, failed? Then they said, fail big. Yeah. And I realized we grew up, if you think about African society, even going in school, people were punished for making mistakes. How can you get punished for making mistakes? And I realized, to be creative means to embrace failure, to take risks. But it's not failure in that I have failed, but it's allowing the experimentation and open process. Because with social media, everybody is so quick. They want to share, they want to get the accolades. You need that quiet time to allow something to shape up. That's why with all the workshops that I get to do, I always tell artists, create something for yourself. It is sacred to you. You are romancing your creativity. This is a thing that you have, that is yours, that you don't have to explain to the world. Because doing that work, when I was going through what I was going through, I was carrying my camera and I would be walking. Even, I will say, during my father's funeral, I was carrying a camera. It grounded me. It's not that I was taking pictures, but it was just, I was holding on to something. Yeah, which was the one tool, the one piece of tool 20 years previously he had connected me to. So I always say, have something with you and you understand, because you understand, I'm not showing up for anyone. I'm not proving my worth or value for anyone, because also that's a distinction people need to get. Because when you also get to the core of why you're doing what you're doing, you have to tell yourself the truth. And a lot of artists don't do that at first, but you'll get to the point in the career, you'll be like, okay, so why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Then you're just like, then you'll get to the stage, oh yes, I wanted to be seen, I wanted to be famous.
Yeah.
Then when you understand, but what does being famous mean? That's why when you ask me about getting the awards, I got it very quickly. I was just like, oh, it's not about the award, because you still have to be with yourself and work with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people like to do to create their work, their art for an audience.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you're saying you shouldn't do it for the audience.
You should do it.
Yeah.
You must do it.
Yeah.
We're in a time in the world you absolutely we must.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is absolutely necessary. But there's also the balance in which, because there's also this thing where you think, I'll just do my stuff and I'll be discovered.
Yeah. It's an energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my first solo exhibition and I've been working for 25 years.
Yeah. What? Yeah, by the way, speaking of which, over 2 decades in the industry.
Yes.
That's a very long time.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's the one truth you've realized working in this creative space in Kenya that you would like to educate younger creatives on?
I'm not going to say it in the terms of educating.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, if you're watching or listening to this, your voice, how you show up is so important. You know, when you say sometimes society and culture depends on it, it depends on it. People may have walls, but art will live on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's music, whether it's writing, whether it's songs, whether it's sculpture, who you are, your voice is important. There's so many things changing in the world. You have something unique. And this is why, again, I'm saying sometimes it's not recognized. I love doing my workshops because anytime I do a registration, I always tell them to send in a picture related to something.
Okay.
And then they get to talk about it. Kevin, every single time I have discovered new work from people, and they were not thinking about it like it's important. And it's just like, bang, and it's the kind of stuff you're just like, oh, and you see something and you're just like, you know how sometimes they say, but the Kenyan industry or this industry, we don't. There are so many powerful, like, exciting, visionary, innovative, bold people. Yeah. But the chance to get to do what they are good at, to develop that in the way that they can, without, again, as you're saying, interference or.
Yeah.
So I still always say, because I get it, there are fears. Again, as I say, art and fear, you'll always be in the car with that. There's also this thing about performance. Yeah. But it's a natural stage and everybody must go through that stage. But you also need to understand and take the curtains away from yourself and recognize when you're performing and when you're showing up. You will know.
You wouldn't know,
You will know. But so there's this balance in which you're just like, okay, I get it. If sometimes you're going to do this thing for doing this thing, do it. But still cultivate. You know how you're just like, you can say, this is my dessert. Yeah? Or I'm marinating this. And it will take years to develop. And that's okay as I'm doing this other thing, because it's hand in hand. Because for me, this is why I'm saying everything in my life is integrated. That's why for me, there's no balance, because it will always feed into something.
Yeah.
And not sometimes, all the times, especially with my work, I recognize they have such a long-term thing.
Yeah.
The fact that 10 years I started a Red Dress project, stopped it, and then 10 years later it came again. Or even some ideas that I have or written. I have a book that I started in 2003 when I started my journey. So I used to write ideas, take clippings from papers, do it. The other day I was looking back at it, I was just like, who is this? So one of the great things also I tell also people, anyone who comes for my whatever, I say, write. Yeah, I say, have a notebook, write.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're a photographer, I know sometimes you always want to be taking pictures. I'm just like sketch, Try new things, different things, then also understand you don't have to make it automatically. You don't have to, how sometimes people are just like, monetize it, and sometimes you're just like,
I was going to go there.
Yeah, monetize it. But then also play.
Yeah. You play
We have forgotten how to play.
That's true. Because it's interesting you put it like that, because I feel like the people who I feel like they put so much stress on their art because they feel like their art has to pay them.
Yeah.
It has to have some sort of monetary value. If not, then it's not good enough.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm I'm just like, oh, give it a break, please. So this is now why I say there's that balance, because I get this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. People have to eat. People have bills to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's no easy way to do this. And I have been through it, and I still go through it. But at the heart of it, going through this period just taught me, because I remember at one point I had gone through the process and I was getting frustrated. And then my friend reminded me, she said, Barbara, you're a photographer because you get commissions, or you're a photographer because you're a photographer. I said, okay, thank you for that reminder. Yeah. And again, as I say, each to his own, because we have different narratives. So I get where we can share with each other. But for me, as I stand as an artist, it's showing these, because sometimes some people think, no, it only has to be this way. I'm just like, no, you can actually create an alternate path for yourself and your path. But it's not about being you and alone on your island. Enchantment for me, the 13th path was I.
Yeah.
Enchantment is we.
Uh-huh.
It's community building.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's spreading this thing, because I'm just like, I wake up every morning and I'm just like, thank you. I'm having this conversation with you. We're sharing this space. I'm breathing. I'm just like, thank you. The reason I called my 10-year anthology project From Enchantment, 7 Breaths in the season of soil, shadow, and skin is because when you think about breath, we only breathe once when we're born and once when we die. In between, it's always a cycle. Yeah. This space that we've had, if you think about the thousands of breaths you take in a day, and it's an abundance of breath. Yeah. When I think about sometimes an image, and I'm just like, how many breaths are held in this image, or even in this encounter that we've had? And I was just like, that it's been enchanted, because it's your aliveness.
Yeah.
It's how you show up to the world. And again, it's not about, this is just like, aliveness also means grief sometimes and crying. It also means anger and rage.
I agree.
And meeting things you're very uncomfortable about, not meeting through with it. Yeah. It's telling the truth. Like, one of the favorite things I remember telling people, get comfortable with saying I don't know. I don't know why some people are scared of saying I don't know. If I don't know, I don't know. Teach me.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Hierophany. That's how it's pronounced.
Hierophany.
Hey. Hauntings and homecoming.
Hierophany, hauntings, and homecoming.
Yeah, so I want you to expound on this homecoming part.
Homecoming.
Yeah. When is your homecoming? What are we talking about over here?
Homecoming was after I had gone through the 13th path, when I went through unlearning and relearning, because you have to do it. When you get successful to a point, you're even seeing it, whether a sports person or something, there's something that will work to a stage.
Yeah.
And you master it, then you have to unlearn, think, okay, you take the wisdom from that. You take the wisdom from it, and then now you start with your other stage. But the biggest gift that my 13th path gave me, with letting go of everything and being willing to start again, and being willing to be in the underground, was that I came home back to myself. And when I say coming home back to myself, I came back to my spirit. I came back to what was true about it. I got very clear, it doesn't behoove me to hide who I am. Because at that stage, even though externally, when I started, people thought I was successful, there was more that wanted to come through. And it was just like, Barbara, you get to show up in who you are and what you do, invite people in the process, then also allow them to bloom. I'm a natural illuminator, and I was always doing that, but I was hiding. So when you're saying I'm an extrovert, Kevin, there was a very long time I spent hiding, because I was just like, no, just look at the pictures, you enjoy yourself, I'm going to shoot you, and it's all about you. And people were like, but what about you? So that was the part where it was just like, okay, homecoming, back to self. So
back to self.
Yeah, so it's just showing up as you are.
Yeah.
Human.
So giving back also meant you starting the workshop.
Yeah. So what it is, what happened after I did the Fuji GFX challenge, the Utawala Women Creating Legacies, because I'm also attracted to that. This is why, again, I say I love hearing from people who are doing what they're doing and sharing what they're doing. It's the illumination. So after I did, the project, months later, Fujifilm came in and they were like, we really like who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Would you like to be an ambassador? And and as much as sometimes you think, ambassador is doing this, but there was the option of you could do workshops, and I just thought, because I saw it, then I was just like, I can get pretties together, because when I started photography, the spaces to be together with other photographers where we could actually just play. I didn't have that. So I just said, I have the power and I can create that with a camera. I'm going to create spaces where people can play, experiment, talk about their work and connect with each other.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, if I had more, you go through periods where you realize, oh, if I had other people of my peers next to me, I wouldn't have gone through that.
Yeah.
So I just said, I'm going to deliberately create workshops and then connect them to each other so they keep on building.
Are these
so that,
online workshops or
no,
physical?
Physical. I
Nice.
prefer physical.
Yeah, me too.
I truly, and this is one of the greatest gifts, and I'm very thankful for Fujifilm. Also, you know how sometimes you're just like, people say, oh, it's just promoting the brand. I'm just like, look, I had that camera before I knew them. They were on my vision list. But it was one of those aspects where the greatest gift is when somebody sees what you do and they let you be who you are and let you come together and do that. And the workshops for me, in fact, the last workshop in Uganda, and it was 7:30 p.m. They should have gone by 5, but they got so into their work. And I remember one person coming and saying, so how do you feel? Then I just said, because I just sat back and I just watched them and I just said, when I see artists just fully embodying who they are,
Yeah.
that's
Powerful.
and I'm just like, so for me again, that's what for me enchantment is.
Yeah.
So again, as I'm saying, you move through periods and you realize we have so much to give and so much to share. And sometimes it's not about, oh, I don't have the money, but I have the space to listen, I have the space to talk,
Yeah.
I have the space to allow you or to be like, amplify yourself. There's no, and I always say in my workshops, I tell everyone there are no mistakes here. There are no mistakes. Because everywhere in the world, people will want to critique you and be like, no, you should do it like this. I'm just like, there's something sacred coming through you. And even when I created the Utawala outfit,
Yeah.
it's just a section of, if you think about it, if all of us were in the studio and we held our hands like this, we're stronger together this way. So getting to do that and be like, oh my gosh.
You know, it's interesting you put it like that because for a young artist listening to you right now, first of all, probably they're excited about joining your workshop, and they should, and we'll tell you how you should do that. But then they're saying, damn, like, Barbara, it is so hard for me to be authentic.
Hey.
You know, I have a lot of fears going on and all these other things, right? So from your, because I'm sure you've noticed a pattern.
Yes.
From your students, should I say the people you work with?
I'm not going to call them students because I also say in life, I'm also a student.
True.
But I'm also you're a master student and teacher all at the same time.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that hinders, or should I say slows down these amazing folks, from achieving their full potential?
Performing for other people. And I get it. So, and unfortunately, I get it because this is the world we live in. And because the quickest way sometimes to get seen is online, so you must perform. But it doesn't have to be about performance, because sometimes now when you see somebody has gotten viral for this, I remember a workshop I did, and I remember because I had an idea, I wanted to show them how to create work, because one of the ways I got good was I would create my own shoots and I'd do them my own way. And that made me stronger. So I was going to teach them how to do this. So when I was getting the team together, I remember talking to one person. I said, okay, we want to take aspects of some of your, because I always do that. Because I always tell people, look, you can get anything from anywhere and create something magical. Then he was just like, no, I want to create something new because I want to trend.
What?
Like, but for me, trending is like so fickle. But I understand it and I get it.
Yeah.
And I get it. So I cannot, because I was just like, everybody deserves to be seen and to get that feeling if they wanted to do it. But I also say, this is where I'm stressing, yes, you can trend, you can want to be famous, you can take the scripts, but please understand, no matter what you do, you cannot automate your creativity. Yeah, you have to create and flow with your own natural rhythm, but you have to also discover that for yourself. Are you willing to be disliked? Are you willing to be invisible and unknown for a while? Are you willing to take the long game? This is now where people sometimes go like this. And that's why sometimes I say, but that separates the greats from this. If you're saying you want to be at the Olympics, so you have to prepare for all those years. So if you think about your craft as a long-term relationship for the Olympics, it's not going to be immediate. There will be instances you will get instant gratification. Excellent. But if you truly, truly want to be the best you that even you do not know how you could be, understand you're going to fail over and over again.
You're gonna have to fail, yeah.
You will.
It's like it's like the gods decided.
You will.
That's the path.
Get comfortable with failure.
Yeah, that's so scary, man. Hey.
Get comfortable with not being liked. Get comfortable with being criticized. But the thing is to say to let it will hurt. Yeah, it will hurt sometimes, and sometimes you'll be like.
Let me ask you, what's the importance of joining a community like yours? For folks who are solo missioning out here, then they're into themselves, and yeah, they're creating good stuff, but there's levels to this thing, I'm sure. Yeah.
I like creating community for.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say a thing with enchantment, just like I've said. I am a rebel, and I like seeing rebellion and creativity, and that's the rebellion we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Where you can be your best you. And I can't tell you to be your best you because it'll come out and you'll be like, I was friends with Olivia before I knew she could sing. Then she just mentioned it and I was just like, Allah.
All this time you didn't tell me.
Yes. Then she comes out, then I'm just like, hush! And then you being one of those friends now you sit and you're just like, because you do need supporters.
Yeah, you do.
And it's not about, so again, there was this thing going on that apparently we're a culture that celebrates mediocrity a lot.
Well, yeah.
And
do you think that's true though? If you look at the people we've made famous.
I'm not going to point, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to point to that, but all I can say is because everybody has big visionary dreams. Big visionary dreams demand also big, bold, focused devotion and building in the dark. Yes? So if you want to be above the level of someone else, understand that's also going to take work from you. Yeah? I always love it sometimes when you see artists coming out, with stuff like, or I'm just going to see someone like Beyonce, like, oh, and you'll hear people talking to them, but you're just like, but the work ethic. Yeah? You doing your album and your work and getting yourself to where you are, your money conversation, your money matters, showing up right now. We're working together. It takes work.
It does.
A lot of invisible hard work, and people don't realize that. But the biggest work, again, I can say it's with you and you. That's the one, because you can't run away from it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so final 2 questions. For guys who put their gifts on a shelf. Ali Rudi Jobo. He has to live with dignity,
Yeah.
He's got a family.
Yeah.
But, he's truly an artist and he knows it and his people know.
Yeah.
But, Kenya is Kenya, Bana. This experience of ours is very, it can be such a downer.
Hi.
Yeah, so do you think it's possible for artists who kind of gave their work a pause to get back into it, even if now they've aged?
It is absolutely possible for them to get back to it.
Yeah.
The fact that, again, as I'm saying, I redid a project I had started 10 years.
Yeah.
But I got to do it in a new way. Then there's also a time when I was really going through it. I could not touch a camera. I was painting. I was doing other craft. That's why I became transmedia, because I allowed other craft to come in and I didn't put expectations on it to monetize it.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. But again, as I'm saying, I get it. But you can put things on a shelf. Someone like my dad, and I remember he had always wanted to be a journalist. But you see, he writes. He wrote his book. He wrote the family history.
Yeah.
I say my dad was an excellent writer. As a photographer, I also write film and stories, but as a photographer, I'm writing with light. So I get the writing bit. But I do remember watching him and also watching other people. And, I've gotten comments before also from people I was in school with, and they're just like, you are so brave. You followed what you wanted to do. And part of me was just like, but how could I not do it?
Let me ask you, what are your thoughts on incomplete work? Yeah, say for example, you started writing a book
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yes.
You've never completed it for whatever reason. Yeah. At what point should an artist know that, you know what, Inaja, let me just let this album go, this book, this painting, and hop on to the next?
Will
yeah,
it
because
go?
my thing is when I look around, even in this country,
Yeah.
a lot of incomplete projects,
Yeah.
and some for a legit reason.
Yes.
But some, maybe folks got distracted.
Yeah.
So how do you know
When
that
it's
you-
not.
when to not pursue it further? Let it go. Or, you know, the whole... Because I feel like sometimes it can also mess you up as an artist. You're thinking, man, I never finish my work. You know, I'm not reliable. Yeah, so this is a conversation that I've had with some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they say, Kev, you get me, I can't handle... Like, I have a pile of incomplete work. You know, and I'm just like, bro, so you just let them go. But them they're saying, Apana, you know. So I don't know what your thoughts are with regards to that.
I would say even if it's one, start with one and finish it, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
True.
One of the things I always say is create dirty. I say be dirty, be messy. Just do at least one thing. This is now why you see why I say do work for yourself.
Yeah.
So that you also... And also this thing about completeness. Is it really complete, Kevin? Is it? Because it's not just about the work, it's also about you.
Yeah.
And while you're still alive, the work is still going on. Whether or not you're touching the actual thing, the work is happening. But I get that sometimes there's things on a liminal space and you're just like, so you see, even with the Utawala, I was just like, yes, I'm done. But what it was I was done being the person who was that. But now in this new stage of being, I could actually take that project and finish it the way it needed to be done. And it's not to say that it's finished.
Yeah.
Because I remember I started even then after the grant, and I said, yeah, it can go further. And I said, the project told me, wait. And now we are having the exhibition.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because now I can get to share those pictures with the ladies who did the first round.
Yeah.
But also still there's a chance for it to continue traveling because the whole idea for it was a traveling project.
Okay.
But sometimes some projects are actually not about the work, but about the process and the practice, about who you are and what they turn you into it. So sometimes it's not about the thing itself, it's about you and the process and how you're actually showing up in the world.
Jeez.
That's the work.
I love it. So talk about this exhibition happening on the 21st of this month, next week.
Yes.
Talk about which day? Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
So the name of the exhibition, it's a transmedia exhibition. There's a difference between multidisciplinary and transmedia. Multidisciplinary is just one thing, and it's just a collection of things from that one thing. Transmedia is when you allow world building to evolve into what you're doing. Everything is connected, but it's world building. That's why, you know, sometimes they say Marvel, then they have this. That is transmedia. So the 13th path allowed me to move from photography and to venture into all these other spaces. And hierophany means to show, to reveal the sacred. Yeah. So showing and revealing the sacred is not necessarily about, it's that something godly, but it's just about the essence of life.
Yeah.
Hauntings and homecoming hauntings, we are all haunted by something. And hauntings can be a great remembrance. So even when you're talking about work that you've left on the shelf, remember the work that I'd left on the shelf that
Yes,
came
true.
back to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the visions of who I wanted to be when I was young, because there's also this beautiful thing when I looked back on how I started photography. Sometimes, you know how you're just like, you are much bold and audacious back then. And there's a time when you go through life hitting you so hard, you forget about that. You even forget about how to imagine. So one of the things I say enchantment is about imagination activism, where you're telling people, please, we need those ideas, we need that creativity. There are different ways in which politically, socially, culturally we can do the work. Even when we're talking about AI and even when you're talking about coding, you know how their brain, the way the brain works, and I'm just like, please, bring it. Yeah? So hauntings, whatever is haunting you that you're carrying. And sometimes it's things that come with you that came through somebody else. Be willing sometimes to be like, I can face through this and go in. Homecoming, not necessarily a space or a place, but to who you are and how you show up into the world.
Yeah.
So that's what the exhibition about. Technically, I'm going to say it's a celebration of an ending also and a beginning. And this is now why also the workshop, thank you Fujifilm again for supporting that, called Synthesis. So I'm showing people how you can take elements of things, sometimes things you thought that were dead, or sometimes seeds that never sprouted, and how you can utilize those elements within your own life, and also how you can recognize where you are, because we are always at different parts and stages of life. One of the reasons I called my 10-year creative anthology project, because I said I'm going to do it all. Like, there'll be projects within this, play, film. Like, you know how you're just like, I can do anything with this. And why it's called 7 breaths? It's because 7 is from alchemy. We all go through 7 stages. You are going through a different stage in life. Olivia, you're going through a different stage in life. I am. Each one of us is. And sometimes they intersect. Yeah. And when I'm talking about soil, again, for me, there's this thing about grounding to earth, about ecological awareness, understanding and connecting to how life has a rhythm, how nature has a rhythm. You also have that rhythm.
Yeah.
Shadows, of course, again, as what I'm saying, we all have shadows. It's not to say that it's something we must all repress and that they're wrong, but there's wisdom in the shadow. There's power in taking elements of your shadow and being like, because sometimes, again, when you're talking about silence, you're actually repressing your power. That's a shadow narrative. And right now in the world, we need powerful people. We need people who can speak. And when you've been made voiceless, your voice actually is now dangerous and it's a shadow. So when you flip that, it's just like, oh, how can you take that?
Yeah.
Skin is about intimacy. I feel sometimes we've gone so much digitally, we've forgotten to connect, to listen, to be with each other. And more than ever, we need that kind of community. And we are seeing it. It's happening so much. Yeah. So hierophany, hauntings, and homecomings
Sounds exciting.
is a big
Yeah.
thank you also
Yeah.
to the community, because seen and unseen, even in our conversation, even in our relationships, yes, I've known Olivia more than you and I interact, but then this kind of space we're having right now is sacred. Coming to the exhibition and seeing that you may or not see something that resonates with you.
Right.
But I say sometimes the work can be a living proof. It's like a living archive that anything is possible with you in your life.
I agree.
That you can actually start again. You can actually go through periods and it can start. And that more than ever, who you are and how you show up is so important. Like, we need each other so much. So much.
Thank you so much for sharing your truth with us.
Yes.
Oh, also the workshop.
Yes.
How can guys be a part of it?
Oh, yes. The exhibition will be the opening will be at Alliance Française. So there will on the opening is the only day I'm going to do it. So there'll be a free film screening, and then there'll be a performance by Almasi and also Muhonja and Isukwiti dancers, because we have to bring in the vibe.
You gotta, yeah.
Sound and image for me is very connected. And
Okay.
the performance piece that will be performed will be a song that actually took me through periods in which I would walk when nothing was working. And it's called Elements, and it's earth, air, fire, and water. And it's wonderful because it's a powerful exhibition.
Yeah.
Then also the short film. So that's happening at Alliance Française. There are links on MOOC. You can get and you can register. We'll put up the links on my page and everywhere, or if you go to Air Nairobi, you can find it. Then on Saturday now is Synthesis. I'll put up the registration link on Monday morning at 11 a.m. So you sign up for it.
Yeah.
So now it will be an artist talk, exhibition, work through, and sort of a mini masterclass on we can get to interact with each other. You see, in how we were talking, how sometimes you recognize elements of also where you are in life. It happens very naturally when we're in spaces like that. So that one is supported by Fujifilm, and that one will again be at Alliance Française.
What time does it
Saturday,
kick off?
2 p.m. to
Okay.
4:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So your social media, because you said you're gonna post everything over there.
At Barbara Minishi.
At Barbara. So are you big on all platforms or mostly like IG on the? I've seen you Kidogo active on IG.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that happened when I went through my phase, and then I left everything, and then I allowed myself to be invisible, because I think we all need to learn that in some kind of a way where you're just like, okay, it's important to be seen.
Yes, it is.
Please,
Yeah.
I'm stressing. It is important to be seen. But with my social media, because I remember learning, I was just like, look, I'm doing most of my work out of social media.
Yes,
I
true.
appreciate meeting all of you and connecting with you on social media when we can. So we will update that and share that with you on the social media. And any other, Olivia, any other places we can share?
She's also on LinkedIn. as well.
nice.
Am I on
Yeah.
LinkedIn?
Yes,
Oh, yes,
you're on
I'm
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And the exhibition will be from the 21st till the 30th.
Yes.
So people can go to Allianz during
Yeah.
that period.
And,
Yeah.
But again, as I'm saying, opening day, that will be the special performance. It won't be repeated, but of course, the exhibition is still vibrant. There'll be the photos, there'll be the videos, there'll be a VR section.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And it's free.
yeah, yes, it's free.
Nice. Yeah, that's yeah.
It's free.
But your work is impeccable. What? I was just, I was even telling my partner, I was just like, yo, look at this girl's work.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very impressive. So that's good stuff. Thank you so much once again for coming through onto Culture Kitchen.
We're cooked. We
I hope-
marinated.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, how's your weekend usually like? Are you like, what do you usually do for fun? Any aside from creating stuff?
You know, I love it when people ask that, and part of me is just like, every day is fun. This is why I also smile when you also say Saturday I won't be working. Then I'm just like, but when are we not? When are we not doing what we love? So that's also
It's true.
I'm,
Wow.
I'm going to say it's the gift of
Yeah.
creating the life that I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I remember sometimes in the morning I'm walking like one woman. I remember last month. Then I met her. Then we stopped because there was this bird that I
Yeah.
saw. It was a hornbill, and she's like, "What?" And I said. Then she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yes." She's like, "You're walking so casually, and it's like 8 a.m. in the morning." Then I'm just like, "This is when I'm
Yeah.
thinking, and my ideas are coming through." Then she's like, "But what do you do?"
That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Asante Sana, though,
Yes.
for coming through. It's been real. I've really enjoyed my time. Guys, once again, that was Khaliyesa. Khaliyesa B. Barbara Minishi.
Yes.
She's a photographer and an award-winning photographer and filmmaker. That's what's up, man.
Human, actually. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes people say introduce yourselves, and I'm just like, yo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm a spirit having a human experience.
Yes.